Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 16 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. We're meeting with Prakash Karamchandani, the co-founder of Balance Grille. At Balance Grille, the Asian fast casual concept is redefining the franchising and restaurant industries. I'm going to talk to Prakash about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 16 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show. We're meeting with Prakash Karamchandani, the co-founder of Balance Grille. Balance Grille, the Asian fast casual concept, is redefining the franchising and restaurant industries. Hi, Prakash. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Marty, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you, Prakash. Thank you for coming on the show. I've been following your concept for a while, so I'm happy to have you on the show. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today, Prakash?
Calling you from bright and sunny Toledo, Ohio.
Oh, nice. And is that where you guys are headquartered, Prakash?
We are headquartered here in Toledo. I grew up in Toledo, and this is where we founded our concept and continue to remain headquartered from here.
And, it's a great story, too. I love when I hear stories like yours, Prakash. But maybe, you can kind of go back to the beginning. I think it was sometime around 2010, or it might even been a little bit before that, because, you got involved with your friend as well. Maybe you could tell the whole story of how this whole concept came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my best friend and I, we graduated from college together in 2008. And it was kind of a rough year to graduate with business degrees,
yes,
finance degrees. And so we spent about a year and a half looking for a job, utilizing our degrees, but just had a tough time finding one. And CJ, my business partner, HoChan, he comes from a restaurant background, and he ended up saying, I want to open a restaurant. These are my ideas. I want to bring lightened, fresh fare to Asian food at that time, and in many markets it still is. Asian food has a reputation for being kind of buffet quality, right?
Yes.
So we wanted to elevate that, and he's really into personal fitness and wanted to create a concept where everything was macro balanced. And so both of those factors tied into the creation of the concept. We tried to create a business plan. Being fresh out of undergraduate school in business, they don't really set you up. They make it sound like you can go write a business plan and then you go to a bank and the bank finances you and you start a business, and it's just that easy. And the reality is we kind of got laughed out of 8, 9 different banks, and obviously the economy didn't play a good role in that market, neither did the fact we were starting with a concept just kind of on paper. It wasn't an existing franchise or a brand. And so we didn't qualify for really any type of financing. We didn't have any collateral. We really didn't have any cash. And so how we ended up starting our first store is I was doing IT work at the time, how I was paying my bills, paying back my college loan. And one of my clients was a real estate developer, and he also happened to be a franchisee of the Panera system. Him and his group built out six Panera locations in and through the Northwest Ohio area. So he kind of helped us out with our business plan a bit and gave us a very preferential lease. And we were able to use the TI dollars from that lease to pay the labor component of our build-out. We went into a Home Depot, and they gave us a $60,000 credit line, and we bought our materials for our build-out from Home Depot, and we used credit cards the rest of the way. And so we actually built our first store, and all off of credit cards, unsecured debt. Not a great way to finance the business, but we ended up making it work. It was a bit of a destination. We didn't have any street level visibility, but we built the brand from there. We tried everything, different sizes, different types of menu items, created this evolving menu, and we gained some steam. About 2 years later, we found better real estate. It was right on a corner, first intersection off a busy freeway, actually in the area of Toledo I grew up in, called Sylvania. And so we opened our second location there, and day one, it was a huge success. That was the location where we, made some expansions, some growth, really refined the concept, and then stamped it out at location 3, and then continued to grow until we hit COVID. COVID caused us to go back and reevaluate all of our business practices. And through that, we kind of decided to pursue a franchise model for our business because of our unit level economics and just our brand positioning and where the marketplace was going.
So in the early stages, I guess you and CJ, Prakash, I mean, franchising probably wasn't in the picture, and then at some point, I guess you realized, as you said, you were able to, scale the model, and you had a very sophisticated system. So was it at that point then you said, we have something here, now we're ready to franchise?
I think it was more, we knew we had something, we were able to scale. Initially, pre-COVID, we were looking to raise some capital and scale corporate. But post-COVID, we thought it may be a great time to get into franchising for a number of different reasons. The way the franchise market was moving, the speed at which we could attain scale, and relative knowledge base of franchisees.
How do you typically describe the concept, Prakash? I mean, if you were at a franchise show, you or CJ, and someone came up to your booth and they're like, Asian fast casual, but it's so much more than that in studying your business model. How do you typically describe the model to a prospective franchisee?
I would start with saying that we're a lifestyle brand that operates in the fast casual space, and we have an Asian cuisine focus. Clean dining is the core of it. I think most consumers, just looking from their perspective, not necessarily a franchisee's perspective, look and say, okay, I'm going to buy something at a certain price point. More than likely, I want something fresh. I want to know what I'm putting in my body, so I'm going to go to a fast casual. And the question then becomes, do I want something clean? Do I want something comfort? And then after that, you look for the flavor. And what we want to do is we want to own the clean Asian space within fast casual. And I think we have an opportunity to do it because it's one of the last kind of blue oceans in fast casual. There's no dominant market leader in Asian.
And speaking of blue oceans, what stood out to me about the model at Balance Grille was how you're very open and receptive to technology in the model, Prakash. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the differentiating factors as well.
I'm probably the best person from Balance to talk about it. I'll tell you, I had no restaurant experience before getting into operating a restaurant. Only my business partner did. My background and knowledge base comes from technology. I've got experience both on the networking side, but also on the programming side. I did software development, and so understanding systems, understanding technologies, and how they can impact a business is kind of the nexus of what I bring to the table. And almost every one of the problems that we've run into in the course of developing Balance as a concept, we've approached with a technology-first approach. And so we do utilize a lot of technology, and it makes our above-store level operation much more efficient.
Yeah. It sounds like you're the data analytics guy. Not to say that CJ isn't, but that's your thing too, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, if CJ was on the podcast, he'd be the first person to call me a geek or a nerd. So,
he would, okay.
You're probably right on.
That's fantastic. That's just terrific. Your industry too. I mean, it's maybe we could talk a little bit about the industry, Prakash, whether it's the outlook of the industry or the future of the industry, or even I guess it's safe to say, I mean, you're part of a big industry.
Of course, yeah. I think fast casual is the fastest growing segment of the restaurant industry, and the restaurant industry is gaining market share even against grocery stores, especially post-pandemic. It was doing that pre-pandemic, and it continues that trend. So I think we're in we're positioned very well.
Yeah, I think so too. What's been tough question? We like to stump our guests once in a while, Prakash, but what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since launching Balance Grille? Under the assumption that, again, you probably have hundreds of stories, so to narrow it down to one single thing. But does anything stand out, over the years since you started Balance Grille?
I think one of the most impactful personal experiences I had was when we moved into downtown Toledo. We decided to go in. Downtown Toledo obviously is not the most growing urban center, but in the last few years it's gained a lot of steam, and we wanted to be a part of that growth. And so we went into a city block that was pretty much blighted. There was nothing really on it, and we anchored it with our restaurant. We also built a 8,600 square foot aquaponics farm that we used to supply some of our own ingredients to our restaurants. And through those two projects, it anchored the development for the revitalization of the entire city block, which was a super rewarding experience, and just really reminded us, like, yes, we operate in the food space, and we put smiles on people's day. People's face every day, but we do have an opportunity to do something bigger and create kind of a lasting effect.
Wow, that's a great example. Maybe we could shift gears a little bit, Prakash, and we could talk about franchising. So, I mean, what's important to you, or what's important to CJ when you're meeting with a prospective franchisee? I mean, are there any particular traits or characteristics that are important to you that would make a successful Balance Grille franchisee?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to two things. First is they're a cultural fit, because this is a long-term relationship. We really want to work with personalities that mesh well right out of the gate, with kind of shared values and shared business goals, to be honest with you. Everybody who gets into business, I think, should probably have a goal outlined. Whether or not you achieve that goal, obviously, sometimes within your control, without your control, but I think having some shared goals is important, and experience. What we're looking for is experienced multi-unit franchisees, possibly even multi-branded, that we can plug into. They have some existing experience in a market and can help us achieve scale of at least 5 units within a market in a relatively short period of time.
That's great. And what's the training like today, Prakash? I mean, do your new franchisees come to headquarters? I mean, maybe you can give a little bit of a picture of that and how that works.
Absolutely, yeah. Training is the core of how we're able to successfully scale the concept. And it's a great standard bearer for an expectation level that our potential franchisees would have from us. And so we invest a lot into training. The initial training is at HQ for the franchisee or their selected operator and their trainers. And so it'd be a group of 4 that would come and visit HQ. They have counterparts set up here. And then they train here for up to 4 weeks, between 3 and 4 weeks, until they achieve all of the training that they need. They then go back and get a little bit of groundwork done at the store, do some of the initial hiring, and then we come out for an additional 3 weeks and assist in the opening of the store. And so we send out between 3 and 4 people to come on the ground and assist in the week prior to opening, the pre-opening period, but also a week or two post-opening. And then we also come out with additional support for marketing and operations approximately 30 and 60 days in.
What is it? Again, every day is probably a little bit different, but what is a typical day like for a Balance Grille franchisee, Prakash?
Ideally, franchisees, you asked about qualifications, they would be a little bit tech savvy. And so we almost have an app for every function.
Wow.
Beginning of the day, wake up, look through reports for the prior day. You've got software that obviously shows you things like sales, but also goes in depth, labor, inventory. And through those reports, you get a pretty good idea of how the prior day went. And then you do a little bit of proactive follow-up to ensure that everything is on track and your team is manicured and maintained. And that's pretty much it. You can go visit stores, but it's a lot of spending time doing work proactively instead of reactively.
That's great. If you and I were to walk into a Balance Grille together, Prakash, and I love Asian food, so I'm pretty much open to anything. What would you recommend to me, or what's one of your favorites in your restaurants?
For me, I always make a decision, do I want bowls or tacos? We serve bowls, tacos, snacks. We also make a drink called bubble tea. And I'm either in a mood for bowls or tacos. From there, my favorite bowl is probably the Wiseman Bowl. It's full of veggies, and it's got a great balance of sweet and spicy. And then on the taco side, I am a fan of spicy. We make a taco called Bang Bang Tacos, and they are unreal.
Really?
All of our sauces are made in-house. And it's a great combination of a really spicy garlic and chili-based sauce combined with a cooling yogurt sauce, and kind of the mix of the sauce is just it's perfect.
Oh, that sounds great. What's it like? I mean, I've been doing this podcast now for 16 years, Prakash, and I trying to think of one experience similar to yours where you have the opportunity to work with your best friend. What's that like for you? I mean, it must be a rewarding experience.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's the best part of my job. I think it's amazing. I think relationships are super important.
Right.
CJ he's been my best friend for going on 20 years. He's like a brother to me. You know, he was in my wedding during COVID. He stayed in my house for a year and a half because he was based in Cleveland. That's where we had just opened a location just prior to COVID. So he actually picked up a spot, which is, I don't know, just an hour and a half, 2 hours east of Toledo. So not terribly far away, but that's where we needed his focus. And he ended up coming back, staying with me in Toledo. And, you know, it's just been, it's everything I could ask for. It's great. You know, it's such a blessing to be able to go to work and who you're working with is your best friend.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking about it, you know, in 800 podcasts, I don't think I've had that situation before, you know, and it's one of the things that kind of drew me to your story. Now that you're in franchising, Prakash, you know, the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, most of them want to get into franchising, but you know that, I mean, in the U.S. alone, they say there's something like 3,000, 3,500 different systems. So when someone starts looking for a franchise, in the beginning, a lot of times they're confused. They don't know which direction to go. It's a little bit of information overload. From everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners then in their quest to buy a franchise? How do they get started?
In the quest to purchase a franchise, I would definitely say start with the shared goals component. I think just like with every business, there's different economic models. Absolutely. You can evaluate them based on that. You can evaluate concepts based on, you know, what kind of support that you receive. But ultimately, does the business achieve the goal that you're going out for? And there are economic goals, but there are also personal goals when you're getting into a business. And just making sure those goals are aligned is the first and most critical thing, because ultimately you have to be happy with the journey. You know, it's not easy. I think anybody who gets into any franchise business, but especially the restaurant business, it comes and goes in waves. There are easy times, there are good times, there are stressful times, there are challenges, there are huge wins that are super rewarding. And, you know, that's what it is. You're kind of riding the wave. And you just have to enjoy that journey.
Sure. Right. No, I think that's great advice, Prakash. So if you can look into a crystal ball, whether that crystal ball is like 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, where do you and CJ see Balance Grille in the future, Prakash?
We would love to see Balance grow to 10 markets, 50 to 55 locations in 5 years. I think for us, that would be a great goal to achieve. I think personally we'll probably blow that out of the water, but if we achieved it, I'd be super happy. But ultimately, I'd also like to see the impact that Balance Grille has on our communities continue to grow. I think we serve an amazing product. Lots of businesses you could get into. For us, produce. It is super healthy, super nutritious. It's packed in eco-friendly packaging. We pay living wages to our employees. It has great effects on the communities that we serve. And I would love to see that effect continue to grow.
That's terrific. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on Balance Grille, Prakash? Of course, there's the franchise opportunity, but even the product itself, are there any websites you can kind of direct them to?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit us at balancegrille.com. Balance is spelled like what's the balance on my account, and Grille has an E at the end of it. You can find us on all social media networks. The franchise site is balancegrille.com/franchise.
That's fantastic. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Prakash, and I'd already like to invite you back in the next year or two as you continue to grow, because I think this is a wonderful franchise opportunity.
Absolutely. I'd love to check in with you, and I'll continue to listen to your podcast along the way.
Thank you. This has been my pleasure, Prakash, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up in our next segment, we'll be playing a clip from our Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Today's Great Quote in Franchising is being brought to you by
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com. Or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on our show. One of the questions we frequently ask on our show is, what advice would you give to a listener in buying a franchise? And today's great quote in franchising comes from the founder of Creative, Jaya Iyer, and Creative is the experiential art destination that looks to entertain, educate, and inspire. And Jaya gave some really great advice. She kind of starts off, she talks about a lot of different things, but one of the concepts is knowing your why. I think for someone who says, okay, I want to buy a franchise, but there's so much out there. From everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners then in their quest to buy a franchise?
I think as a business, as someone who wants to start a business, the first thing that you have to identify is your why. Why are you wanting to do this?
Right.
And that's kind of what would drive the direction or the businesses then you want to look into. What is your passion? What are your goals as far as being a business owner? Of course, we want to make money and we want to fulfill our responsibilities and financial commitments. That's one part of it. But to do it on a day-to-day basis, there has to be something more than that you have to be connected to that idea, to that concept, and love to be in that environment. So those are some of the things that the person has to do as their homework. Now, next part, as you said, there are so many different options out there. And a lot of times people think that an established brand might provide them more support than an upcoming or an emerging franchise brand. But what I say is that's not what someone should look at. They should really look at, is this brand positioned for growth? Because you're not buying into it today. You're buying into it for the long term. So if the market's oversaturated, if you have too many of similar concepts that are competing with you, if there's no uniqueness to the business, then you're really not positioning yourself for growth. So those are some of the aspects that everybody should kind of seriously consider. It just doesn't matter how many locations they have. Do they have the support system? What's unique about them? What are some of the business ideas? Would they kind of take feedback? So it's all of that that you need to kind of understand and evaluate when you determine what's the right fit for you.
So as the founder of the company, I guess I can ask you, where do you see Creative, if you could look into a crystal ball, Jaya, whether it was 1 year or 3 years or 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization?
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.